The alien marketplace was loud and full of strange voices from many worlds. Bright lights hung from the metal ceiling and strange machines moved on the floor. In the center of the auction hall stood a platform made of black stone. On it sat a mother. From a faraway planet, her skin was pale blue and full of old scars. Her clothes were torn and dirty, and her body looked weak. She held her child close to her chest and wrapped her arms around the small creature like she was protecting something. More important than life, the auctioneer was a tall alien with 6 arms and a voice that echoed across the room. He raised one of his hands and shouted to the crowd around him, "Next item for sale is a broken alien mother with 1 child, no home. No papers, no use. Anyone want her? Start at 0 credits. No one moved, no one spoke. Some laughed and looked away. Some turned and walked toward the next item. Others whispered to each other, but no one made an offer. The mother did not cry, and she did not speak. Her eyes stared forward like she was not really here. The child in her arms made a soft sound like a scared animal and pressed its head into her chest. She held the child tighter and closed her eyes. The auctioneer raised his voice again and waved all 6 hands like he was angry. "Come on, no one wants a free servant. She is weak, but she can work. The child can grow and maybe be useful. No one." Not one offer. A tall lizard-like alien in golden armor laughed and shouted, "She is cursed. Her people are gone. She brings bad luck. Let her rot." Another alien with wires in its face shook its head and said, "She is a waste of space. We have better things to pay." The crowd moved on, and the mother was left alone on the platform. The auctioneer looked bored and sighed with all 4 mouths going once, going twice. Last chance. Just before he said the words to end the sale, someone stepped forward from the back of the crowd. It was a human, one of the few who came to this part of space. His name was Alex. He wore a simple jacket and boots that were old but strong. He looked like someone who had seen war and loss and pain. He looked at the mother on the platform, and his eyes did not turn away. He did not laugh, and he did not look afraid. He stepped closer and spoke in a calm voice. "I will take her." The auctioneer blinked with all 8 eyes and tilted his head. "You want her? You want this broken alien with nothing?" Why? Alex nodded slowly and said, "She can have my name." The crowd went silent. No one said a word. No one laughed. Even the machines stopped moving for a moment. The mother opened her eyes and looked at the human for the first time. Her face did not show hope, but it did not show fear either. She watched him like she was trying to understand what he just said. The auctioneer spoke again, but this time his voice was slow. "You are giving her your name. You know what that means? She becomes your family under galactic law. You will be responsible for her crimes, if any, her debts, if any, her life and her death." Alex looked at the mother again and then looked back at the auctioneer. "Yes, she can have my name." The auctioneer clicked his teeth and pressed a button on his wrist. A soft blue light scanned Alex and then the mother. Their names were joined in the galactic system. The sale was complete. For the first time, the alien mother was not alone. The crowd slowly began to whisper again. Some said the human was mad. Some said he had a plan. Others said he would be dead in a week. Alex walked toward the platform and reached out his hand. The mother did not move at first. Then slowly she stood up. She held her child in one arm, and with the other she touched Alex's hand. They walked away from the auction hall and into the shadows of the market. No one followed, but deep in the crowd, one small figure watched them with glowing red eyes. It whispered into a device on its wrist, "Target has been taken." The human made the offer. "Now we wait," and in the distance something began to move. The alley behind the marketplace was cold and dark. Alex walked slowly with the alien mother beside him. Her steps were weak but steady. Her child clung to her neck and made no sound. They did not speak. They did not need to. Their silence was louder than the noise behind them. Shadows moved around them. Strange creatures watched from broken corners and vents, but no one dared to come close, not because of fear, but because they did not understand. Alex did not glance back. He led them down an old path, through rusted doors and forgotten tunnels. This place was not home, but it was safe, at least for now. He opened the door to a small room made of steel and old wood. Inside were a table, 2 chairs, a broken screen, and 1 bed. It was not much, but it was shelter. He pointed toward the bed, and the mother walked to it slowly. She sat down and held the child close again. She looked around like she was waiting for someone to hurt her, but Alex only pulled out a small packet of food and placed it on "The table eat this you need it," he said with a soft voice. She did not move, her eyes stayed on him, dark eyes full of warning and sorrow. She did not trust him, not yet. Alex sat on the floor and leaned against the wall. He did not speak again, he simply waited. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. Time felt heavy in the room. The child made a small sound, not a cry, more like a sigh. Slowly, the mother opened the packet and gave a small piece to her child. Then she took a bite herself. It was not good food, but it was warm. Alex closed his eyes and rested his head back. He was tired, more than he had felt in years, but something inside him was finally still. He remembered his sister. She had once looked at him the same way, with fear, with silence, with a heart broken by war and fire. That was a long time ago, before Earth lost its last colony, before peace turned to smoke. He had saved no one then, but now, maybe, just maybe, this one choice meant something. The mother watched him with careful eyes. She tried to understand why a human would give his name to someone like her. Her people were hated. Her world was ash. She was nothing in the eyes of the galaxy. But Alex did not treat her like nothing. He did not even ask her name. He just gave her his. She wondered what kind of creature he truly was. When the child finally fell asleep, she stood up and walked to where Alex sat. She looked down at him with caution, then spoke her first words. Alex opened his eyes slowly and looked at her. "Because you were alone. Because you looked like someone who needed a second chance, because no one else did." She looked away, and her hands tightened around her arms. "I am not safe. I am not useful. You will regret this." Alex stood up and looked her in the eye. "I have made worse choices. You are not one of them." She blinked once, then twice. Her voice dropped lower. "My name is Myra. My son's name is Soren." Alex nodded and said nothing more. Names were sacred among many species. He had waited until she was ready. Outside, the wind blew across metal roofs and loose wires. Inside, the air felt heavy but different now, like something had shifted. In a dark corner of the market, a signal moved through space. A small drone followed its target through the tunnels. It watched the room from above. Its camera blinked once and zoomed in. Inside, it saw the human and the alien mother. It sent the image to a ship far above the planet. The message was simple and cold. Subject secured. Initiate phase 2 on that ship. Someone read the message and smiled. "Let them believe they are safe. Let the human think he is kind. It will make his fall more painful." Back in the room, Myra sat on the bed again. Alex placed a thin blanket over her shoulders and sat on the floor once more. He did not ask about her past. He did not ask what she was running from. He just sat there, a human and an alien, two broken souls in a broken galaxy. But in that room, for one quiet night, they were not broken anymore. They were something else, something that did not have a name yet. But it was real, and somewhere deep in the stars, that was enough to make the darkness take notice. Asterisk. The morning did not arrive with sunlight. The sky above the planet was always gray. The air smelled of smoke and rust. The streets were never quiet. But inside that small room, Myra opened her eyes and felt something she had not felt in many days. She felt still. Soren slept beside her with his small hand holding her arm. He looked peaceful for the first time since they escaped their world. Myra slowly sat up and looked around. The human was not there. Panic touched her chest. She stood and looked toward the door. Her heart beat faster. Had he left? Had it all been a trick? Was she alone again before the fear could grow stronger? The door creaked open. Alex stepped in with 2 small bags in his hands. He looked tired but calm. He looked at her and nodded once. "Food, clothes. Nothing special, but it will help." Myra took the bags slowly. Her fingers trembled. She did not look at him for long. Trust was still far away, but something inside her did not feel cold. This time Soren woke with a yawn and blinked at the light. He saw Alex and quickly hid behind Myra. Alex smiled gently and took out a small fruit from the bag. He placed it on the table and stepped back. "For you, safe to eat. You can check if you want." Myra looked at the fruit, sniffed it, touched it, then gave it to Soren. The boy ate in silence. His eyes watched Alex like a shadow follows light. Alex sat on the floor again. He picked up a small piece of metal and started to fix something in his hand. His fingers moved slowly. He did not speak. He gave them space. Myra finally sat on the edge of the bed. Her voice was quiet but clear. "You are strange. Most humans look away when they see my kind. Most humans hate us. You are different." Alex kept working on the metal and answered without looking up. "I have seen too much pain to hate easily. And I have made too many mistakes to judge anyone." Myra said nothing, but her eyes softened. Just a little later that day, they stepped outside the room together, not as friends, not as family, but as something that had no name. Yet the market was busy. As always, noise filled the air. Aliens from many planets moved like waves of color and shape. Some looked at Myra with disgust, some did not see her at all. But when they saw her walking beside a human, they whispered. One trader called out to Alex, "You take strays now, or do you collect broken things for fun?" Alex did not stop walking. He only said, "She is under my name, show some respect." The trader laughed, but did not say more. They reached a small tech shop. Alex needed parts for something he was building. While he spoke to the seller, Myra waited near the door with Soren in her arms. That was when she felt it, a strange feeling like eyes watching her too closely. She turned slowly and scanned the crowd. Too many faces, too many shapes, but there one figure stood, too still, too calm, covered in dark cloth, head slightly tilted. It turned and walked away when she looked. But the feeling stayed. When Alex returned, she spoke softly. "We are being watched." Alex nodded without surprise. "I thought so too. That drone last night was not from the city system. It had military signals. Someone is tracking you." Myra closed her eyes for a moment, then spoke. "They are not after me. They are after what I carry." Alex looked at her, his voice low. "What is it?" Myra looked at Soren, then looked away. "Not here, not now." Alex understood some secrets need the right place. That night they returned to the room. Myra did not sleep. She sat near the door, listening, thinking. Alex worked quietly at the table. He was building something small, a scanner, maybe a jammer, or just something to keep his hands busy. Myra watched him for a while, then said, "You do not ask questions. You do not push." Why? Alex looked up for a moment, then said, "Because when people are ready, they speak, and when they are not, you only cause pain by forcing it." Myra looked at him for a long time. Her voice was almost a whisper. "You lost someone, didn't you?" Alex stared at the floor. His fingers stopped moving. Yes, the room was silent again, but it was not cold silence. It was something deeper outside, far away. A ship moved through the sky with no lights inside that ship. Someone watched their room through a blinking screen. The voice on the ship said, "We wait for the signal. The child is the key. Do not strike yet. Let them believe in peace." Inside the small room, Myra sat beside her son. Alex sat on the floor across from them. None of them knew what waited in the shadows, but tonight they were together, and that was enough to make the watchers nervous. Asterisk. The stars above the city flickered like broken lamps. The night sky was never clear on this planet. It was full of smoke and clouds and silent machines floating far above. But in the small room at the edge of the marketplace, Myra sat in the dark and listened to the quiet breathing of her child. Alex was still awake. He was always awake, even when his eyes were closed, even when his body rested. His mind never stopped. He worked with his tools in silence, fixing things that were not broken, building things that had no clear purpose. It was how he stayed steady. It was how he stayed alive. Myra watched him from the corner of the room, her arms wrapped around Soren. Her body still, but her mind full of storms. She had been silent for many hours. She had spoken little since they left the market, but something inside her was changing, something slow and fragile. She whispered his name once, so soft it almost vanished. Alex, he did not look up, but his hands stopped moving. "Do you know what I used to be?" she asked. With a voice made of smoke and memory, he waited, not answering, letting her speak. "I was a healer on my world, not a soldier, not a fighter. I helped bring life into the world, not take it away." She looked down at her hands, long fingers, once soft and gentle, now rough and tired. "I lived in a place called Ilaris, high mountains, blue river sky, so clean you could taste it. People would come to me when babies were ready to be born. I would hold their hands, I would speak the old words, I would sing the song of first breath." She paused, her voice broke like thin ice, and then the war came. Alex listened without speaking. His eyes focused on her, but without pressure. "They said we were hiding weapons. They said we were training rebels. They said we were a threat to galactic peace, but we had no army, we had no ships, we had only families and farms and stories." One morning, I woke up to the sound of fire, not normal fire, fire that falls from the sky. She touched her forehead gently. There was a scar just above her eye, hidden by her hair. "They bombed the healers first, said we were spreading sickness. They burned our records. They erased our names. I ran with my child in my arms. My mate died trying to hold the soldiers back. He bought me seconds, just seconds, but they were enough. I ran through forests, through tunnels, through dead cities. I ran until I had no voice, no food, no tears. Soren never cried once. He just held on like he knew that crying would get us both killed." Alex finally spoke. "Why did they chase you this far, even Now Myra looked at him. Her eyes were no longer empty, they were full of something sharp and bright. Because I carry what they fear. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small orb. It pulsed with a soft blue light, alive but silent. This is not just a memory device. It holds the last seed of our planet, our culture, our language, our knowledge. It holds the last song of Alaris. Alex leaned forward slowly. He did not touch it, but he felt its weight. They want to erase us, Myra said, not just kill us, erase us, so no one will remember we ever lived, and this orb is the last proof we were real. Soren stirred in his sleep, and Myra placed the orb back into her boggy. Did not ask to carry this, but now I must because no one else can. Alex stood up and walked to the window. The street outside was quiet, but his eyes searched the shadows. They will come again, he said. Myra nodded. Yes, they always do. He turned to her and his voice was firm. Then we must not stay here. Myra looked surprised. You still want to help us even after knowing the truth? Alex looked at her without blinking. You are not the first refugee I have met, but you are the first who still sings in her silence. We leave tomorrow. I have a place. She asked. Where? He sighed. A shipyard not far, hidden below the old rings. It is broken, but it flies. Myra did not smile, but something behind her eyes softened. She looked down at her child, then looked back at the man who had given her his name. She did not understand him fully, but in this cold galaxy, understanding was a luxury. Trust was all they had. Outside, the sky rumbled. The watchers were closer now. Signals moved in the clouds. Machines began to wake, but inside the small room, a healer, a child, and a man with old pain made a choice to run, to resist, to remember. And somewhere in the stars, the song of Alaris waited to be sung again. Asterisk. The sky turned darker than before. The kind of dark that feels like it is watching you, the kind of dark that does not sleep. Alex moved quickly through the narrow back paths of the city. Myra followed close behind, holding Soren tightly in her arms. Her breath was heavy, but her steps were sure. They did not run yet, not yet, but they were close to running. The streets were waking up with movement that did not belong. Metal boots clicking against stone, eyes that glowed red in shadow, voices that spoke in broken signals. Alex knew the sound of soldiers. Even when they wore cloaks and masks, even when they moved like ghosts, he whispered without turning his head. They are here. Myra's grip on her child grew tighter. She did not look back. She knew who they were. She had seen them before. The Black Circle. A group that did not wear flags, a group that worked for no one but silence. They were not here to capture, they were here to erase. Alex took a sharp turn into a tunnel that dipped under the city. The lights flickered above them. Water dripped from old pipes. Every step echoed louder than it should. Behind them came the sound of movement, not fast, not slow, a steady sound that said, we are not in a hurry, we will catch you. Alex stopped at a locked gate and pulled out a device from his jacket. He pressed it against the lock and waited. The screen blinked red, then yellow, then red again. Myra looked back. Shadows moved at the end of the tunnel. One shadow stepped forward, tall, covered in armor, face hidden behind a mirror mask. Soren whimpered once and Myra turned to block his view. Alex whispered again, I need more time. Myra did not answer. She stepped into the middle of the tunnel and raised one hand. The soldier paused. She spoke in her old language, words filled with sorrow and flame. Her voice was not loud, but it carried far. The soldier tilted his head, then raised a weapon. Alex shouted, now, get down. The gate clicked green. He grabbed Myra's arm and pulled her through. They ran into a deeper part of the tunnel. The gate slammed shut behind them. A flash of light hit the gate, then silence. Alex kept running, Myra beside him, Soren wrapped in her arms, eyes wide but silent. They reached a ladder and climbed up one by one. At the top was a hatch covered in rust and dust. Alex kicked it open and pulled them out into the lower ring of the city. This part was broken, forgotten, filled with old ships and machines that no longer moved. He led them to one corner where a large tarp covered something metal. He pulled it off and revealed a small ship. Rough, scratched, but not dead. Myra looked at it and asked, will it fly? Alex did not smile, but his eyes held something close to it. It will. He opened the side hatch and helped her inside. The ship's lights flickered, then glowed steady behind them. The hatch they came through was opening. The sound of boots returned closer now. Alex rushed to the front and powered the ship. The engine coughed once, twice, then roared like it remembered who it was. The ship lifted, slow, heavy, then faster below. The soldiers reached the platform. They raised their weapons and fired. The back of the ship sparked but held. Alex pulled the controls hard, and the ship spun upward through the old tunnels. Myra sat with Soren in her lap, one hand gripping a rail, the other clutching her bag with the orb. Alex shouted over the engine hold on the ship, burst out of the tunnel. Into open air above them, the sky was filled with traffic, civilian crafts, merchant drones, and hidden eyes. He turned the ship hard to the left and entered a restricted zone. No ship entered here without clearance, but that was the point. A warning flashed on the screen, then another. Myra asked, "What is this place?" Alex answered, "A graveyard. Old ships floated around them, ruins from a forgotten war, bodies of machines without names. The Black Circle would not follow here, not fast, not without risk." Alex guided the ship into the shell of a massive war cruiser, its sides torn open, its heart silent. He shut off the engine and let the ship drift inside. Darkness surrounded them, but it was quiet. Myra looked at him, breathing hard, eyes searching his face. Alex leaned back and closed his eyes for a moment. "We are safe for now." Myra did not speak. She looked down at Soren, who had fallen asleep in her arms again. The child trusted without question. She wished she could do the same, but something in Alex made her believe, not completely, not blindly, but enough. Outside, the old cruiser drifted in space like a ghost. Inside, a healer, a child, and a man with no reason left but one chose to keep moving because stopping meant ending, and they were not ready to end. Not yet. The silence inside the old war cruiser was heavy, not peaceful silence, not the kind that calms the mind, but the kind that holds memories, the kind that listens when no one speaks. Alex moved through the broken halls of the wreck, his flashlight cutting through shadows that looked like they were waiting. Metal creaked beneath his boots. Old signs in forgotten languages faded on the walls. Signs of battles no one remembered, wars no one spoke of anymore. He checked the ship's systems again. Power low, oxygen, holding engines cold but sleeping. He had bought them time, but time was a thin wall, and walls always crack. Myra sat with Soren in a corner of the ship's control room. The boy slept against her side. She brushed a hand through his hair without thinking. Her other hand rested on the bag that held the orb. Her fingers curled tight around the strap. Alex returned and sat across from her, his eyes tired, his voice calm. "We need to talk." Myra looked at him without fear. Fear had already done its worst. What remained was something stronger, not anger, not trust, something in between. She nodded once. Alex reached into his jacket and pulled out a small data stick. He placed it between them. "I stole this from the Black Circle 2 years ago. It was locked with 5 layers of code. I broke them last month." Myra looked at the stick, then looked at him. "What is on it?" Alex leaned back against the cold wall. "A project classified by 3 systems, approved by no one, funded by shadows." He paused, his voice lower now. "Your world was not destroyed by accident. It was chosen." Myra did not move, but her grip on the orb tightened. "Chosen for what?" Alex looked at her with the weight of someone who had seen too much. "Your people created something rare, something no lab could make, no empire could build. It was not a weapon, it was not a ship, it was knowledge, real pure living knowledge." Myra whispered, "The song of Ilaris." Alex nodded. "It was more than a song, it was a key, a map, a voice that could speak to old machines. Open doors locked by time, wake things that should have stayed asleep, and the Black Circle wanted it, but they could not steal it. So they erased everything around it, burned the field to find the seed." Myra closed her eyes. She remembered the screams, the smoke, the cold sky falling. It made sense now, terrible sense. Alex continued, "Your child Soren, he carries part of it, not just the orb, but something inside him, written in his blood, in his voice. They tested this once on others, they failed, but Soren is different." Myra stood slowly, her voice sharp. "He is not a weapon, he is not a key. He is my son." Alex raised his hands. "I know I am not here to use him, I am here to protect him." And she looked at him, searching for cracks, for lies, but his face was only tired, not false. She sat again, her body still, her mind full of fire. "How long do we have?" Alex checked a small device on his wrist. "Maybe 2 hours before they trace us again. Maybe less if they send scouts." Myra looked at the orb, then at Soren, then back at Alex. "Then we do not run, we send the song." Alex frowned. "We have no uplink strong enough, not from here." Myra smiled, a small, bitter smile. "The old war cruiser, it was built for signal war, deep wave transmission, still intact under the main deck." Alex blinked once, then smiled back. "Of course, old ghosts with old voices. They moved fast." Myra guided him through the cruiser, her memory sharp. The layout still burned into her mind from old lessons. They passed halls full of dust and silence, entered a chamber where wires grew like vines. The signal core was dead, but not broken. Alex connected his tools. Myra placed the orb in the center. Ring lights flickered. The chamber hummed. Energy returned like breath after drowning. She began to sing soft at first. Then stronger. The language of Alaris filled the room, not just sound, but meaning, memory, truth. Alex watched as the orb glowed. Images rose in the air, symbols and stories and names, a world rebuilt in light. The transmission began spreading across channels, jumping from relay to relay, farther than weapons, deeper than lies. Somewhere in the stars, someone would hear it. Someone would know they existed. Myra kept singing, her eyes full of tears that did not fall, her voice steady, her hands holding the future. Alex stood guard at the door, weapon ready, eyes sharp. They were coming, he knew, but for this moment, the truth had wings, and the silence of Alaris was broken at last. The old war cruiser shook like it had been pulled from sleep. The signal core pulsed brighter than any star outside. Every system flickered back to life. Engines whispered with ancient power walls, hummed with voices long forgotten. Myra stood at the center of the chamber, her song fading now, but its echoes still strong, still alive, still moving through the universe. Alex checked the transmission logs. They were complete. The data had jumped to 5 major relay points. Someone would hear it. Someone would know. He turned toward Myra and saw her holding Soren close. The child blinked up at the floating lights with wonder, his small fingers reaching toward the symbols of a world he never knew, but somehow remembered. Alex spoke with quiet strength. "We did it." Myra looked at him, her voice soft but filled with something new. "Not yet. They are still coming." He nodded once, then moved toward the controls. "The cruiser can fly, not far, not fast, but enough." Myra followed him to the bridge. The floor beneath their feet trembled with old energy. The ship did not rise with speed, it rose with memory, with purpose. Outside, the shadows were not silent anymore. Black circle ships entered the graveyard space. No lights, no names, just hunters in the dark. They moved in a pattern, not chasing, trapping. Alex scanned the field and mapped a path. "We go through the burn ring. They will not follow there." Myra understood. The burn ring was a field of broken engines, radiation storms, and magnetic waves. Too dangerous for most ships, but the war cruiser was not most ships. Soren sat in the co-pilot seat, wide eyes filled with stars and motion. He did not cry, he did not fear, he simply watched. The first blast hit the side of the cruiser. Metal groaned, shields flared. Myra held steady. Alex adjusted course. The second blast missed. The third did not fire, burst across the rear chamber. Smoke filled part of the hallway. The ship tilted but kept flying. Alex shouted, "We hold together, no matter what." Myra moved through the bridge and sang again, a low, steady note that flowed into the ship's old systems. The walls responded. The ship remembered. Engines surged, hull sealed, power stabilized. The ship reached the edge of the burn ring. Alex pushed the controls. Myra held Soren tight. They passed into the storm. Flashes of blue and red danced across the windows. Waves of static crashed against the shields, but the cruiser held. It had survived worse. Behind them, the black circle ships stopped, afraid, unwilling to follow. The cruiser kept going. Hours passed, then silence, real silence, not from fear, but from peace. The storm faded. Stars returned, and with them the open sky. Alex leaned back in his seat, his face covered in sweat and dust, but his eyes calm. Myra looked at the map. They were near a quiet system, no known stations, no patrollers. "We can rest," she said, "not forever, but long enough." Alex nodded. "We find a moon, we land, we rebuild." Soren slept in her arms, safe, dreaming, alive. They reached a small moon covered in green and silver, a place forgotten by charts, but alive with air and soil. The ship landed with a heavy breath. Its work complete. Alex stepped onto the ground, first, then Myra, then Soren. The air was clean, the wind soft, the sky wide. They built a shelter from the ship's parts, a home, not much, but real. Myra planted the orb beneath the first tree, not to hide it, but to let it grow. Each night she sang the songs of Alaris, not for war, not for warning, but for memory. Alex built tools and watched the stars. He knew they would return one day, but now they had something to protect. Soren ran through the grass, laughed with joy, spoke words in 2 tongues, one from his mother, one from the stars. Myra looked at Alex one evening, the fire warm between them. "Thank you," she said. Alex looked at the sky. "You saved more than just yourselves. You gave something back to the galaxy." Myra smiled not with her mouth, but with her eyes. We begin again in the distance. The stars listened, and somewhere in some part of the great unknown, the song of Alaris reached ears that still remembered. Not all stories end in fire, some end in planting in, growing and healing. This was not the end. This was the first page of something new, and, for the first time in a long broken galaxy, hope had a name again.